Hey folks, it's Fentony. Welcome back to the channel. I hope we've all recovered from the Targaryen madness that was the season 2 finale of House of the Dragon. Because today we're going to talk about the brand new series from HBO, the Game of Thrones prequel and Night of the Seven Kingdoms, based on the stories of Dunk and Egg, which will be airing next year in 2025. They're filming right now, so I would mark your calendars for a potential April release date, the original Game of Thrones time slot. This series will consist of only 6 episodes, but before you rage and compare that to season 2 of House of the Dragon only having 8 instead of 10, Dunk and Egg is a much smaller story compared to House of the Dragon and A Song of Ice and Fire. So 6 episodes are adequate. Remember, they're adapting the stories of Dunk and Egg by George R. Martin, which currently has 3 novellas. The Hedge Knight, which will be season 1, The Sworn Sword, probably season 2, and The Mystery Knight, season 3. Originally, they were released individually, but you can get them as one collection for easy access, titled A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And I would highly recommend the audiobooks that are narrated by Harry Lloyd, who played the villainous Viserys Targaryen, Daenerys' brother, from Game of Thrones Season 1. So Season 1, The Hedge Knight, which will feature the meeting of the titular characters, Sir Duncan the Tall and Egg, who is actually Prince Aegon, who would later become King Aegon V, the last king to hold that name. It's set 90 or so years before the start of Game of Thrones, and the Targaryen dynasty still holds the Iron Throne. However, they've lost their ultimate weapons, the dragons are no more. But as we will see in House of the Dragon, the Targaryens only have themselves to blame for losing their superpower. And the Targaryens at this point have just recovered from the infamous Blackfire Rebellion. And guys, many of us hardcore fans have long sought after an adaptation of Dunk and Egg. Like I say, it's a smaller scale than House of the Dragon and definitely A Song of Ice and Fire, but in my opinion, Dunk and Egg are some of the best work that George R. Martin has wrote, especially the third one, The Mystery Knight. And like I said, this story is set after House of the Dragon and after the failed Blackfire Rebellion, another TV show I'm sure we all want to see. And Dunk and Egg actually partially deals with the aftermath of the Blackfires, as there's many in the realm still loyal to them, not the Targaryens, and many remember those that tried to claim power. And a very important character in this time is Brynden Rivers, Bloodraven, who we just saw in the House of the Dragon Season 2 finale, and who you'll remember as Bran Stark's teacher, the old man in the tree north of the wall, but in fact he's a Targaryen bastard. And he's an important character during the rebellion and its aftermath, as Hand of the King. I won't spoil anything, but he does appear to foil a second Blackfire Rebellion. Another character that you'll undoubtedly see is actually Aegon's brother, Aemon, who you'll remember from Game of Thrones as the old man at the wall, Maester Aemon Targaryen, who played a very important role as a mentor to Jon Snow and Samwell Tarly whilst they were at the Night's Watch. It's also possible we might see other characters like a young Walder Frey, Old Nan, even Melisandre. I don't mind seeing characters pop up if they're warranted. Maester Aemon makes sense. Melisandre, many theories out there. I just hope they don't go down the road of pointless cameos. If a character shows up, it has to make sense in terms of the timeline and the plot. And we've got all that to look forward to. Well, hopefully, because technically this series is incomplete. George has planned 6 to 12 stories, but he's only done 3. He's planning on telling the entire story of Dunk and Egg, and he's got some working titles for new stories in the future, including The Sellsword, The Champion, The Kingsguard, The Lord Commander. Each title seems to be a progression in Dunk's career as a knight, and it will chronicle the rise of Sir Duncan the Tall as the legendary Lord Commander, and his best friend, King Aegon V. And it's likely this story will end with the tragedy at Summerhall, and fans have long theorized that maybe Egg was trying to bring back the dragons into the world. And I believe, just like with House of the Dragon, the prince that was promised may play an important role. Maybe Rhaenyra does manage to pass down the legacy of Aegon's conquest and his dream of the Long Night. And perhaps he tries to do what Daenerys done many years later, but this time, of course, unsuccessfully. Maybe Egg or another Targaryen close to him had a dragon dream of a great fire consuming a Targaryen and their dragons only for them to be reborn from the fire. I can see them incorporating that, but I know many fans are uneasy about them leaning more and more towards the prince that was promised, especially with how the main series treated that prophecy, and of course the character of Daenerys Targaryen. But that's a long, long way off, and we might never get to that point, because George R. Martin is not writing any more Dunk and Egg until after the Winds of Winter, and we all know the struggle that he has getting Book 6 out. And in fact, George R. Martin told us on HBO at one point that after the Game of Thrones ended and the prequel started development, there would be no Dunk and Egg, because that story is not finished, and he didn't want to get another farce like Game of Thrones where they go beyond the source material. And he said something similar about Robert's Rebellion, because by the end of A Song of Ice and Fire, we'll know everything about the rebellion, so there's no point. But I think HBO twisted his arm and threw a few million his way on Dunk and Egg, and probably Robert's Rebellion one day. But personally, I don't want another situation where we run out of source material. But I also don't want a situation where we just abandon this after 3 stories. I want to see it all. I imagine the plan is to adapt the 3 stories, 6 episodes at a time, into 3 seasons. And with a lack of dragons and White Walkers, post-production will be less strenuous. It's also going to be cheaper as you've got less big names in this. So perhaps a quicker turnover than the later seasons of Game of Thrones and especially House of the Dragon. So you might get this out in House of the Dragon's off-season. Dunk and Egg in 2025, Season 3 of Hot D in 26, Dunk and Egg Season 2 27, and then House of the Dragon Season 4, which will be the finale, in 2028. And who knows what else HBO's cooking up. They currently have, I believe, 7 shows in development, not including House of the Dragon or Dunk and Egg, and 3 of those are live action, including Aegon's Conquest. And it seems to me that most of the Game of Thrones prequels and spin-offs are Targaryen focused. Makes sense, they're the most popular and iconic house in the series. And the majority of the stories told are about them. Dunk and Egg, Fire and Blood Part 2, which is coming after the Winds of Winter. And we all know how insanely popular the dragons are. As seen in certain episodes in Season 2 of House of the Dragon, when they were absent, we saw the uproar that caused. But there will be no dragons in Dunk and Egg, so I am intrigued to see the reaction from more casual fans. But please, please don't write this series off. The Targaryens are ever present. One of them is one of the 2 main characters in the show. And this is some of the best material written by George, and I think it's because it's smaller scale. And there's not dozens of characters with all their stories set over 2 continents. And at the heart of it, it's just a normal dude. He might be extremely tall, but he's come from nothing. He's just trying to get by as a hedge knight. And then you have a little Targaryen prince that just wants to experience life outside of the Red Keep. So now I want you to post your thoughts and opinions on Dunk and Egg, if you've read the books or not. Are you excited for the series, or because it doesn't have dragons, White Walkers, and other elements that made Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon popular? Are you going to skip it? If that's your current mindset, please reconsider. Give it a shot. I'm sure you're going to love it. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you soon.